In an already stacked year with the likes of Resident Evil 4, Baldur's Gate 3, Starfield, and more recently Spider-Man 2, the release of Alan Wake 2 is another game to add to this already large list. This is a game that is 13 years in the making. While I'm not sure how many people have played the first game, I am certain that a lot more people have played more recent game, Control. When the game was first announced, I was excited because I really loved Control and just how weird it got with the world building, Jesse, and the old house, and it was one of those things where I wasn't quite understanding everything, but I was enjoying the hell out of nearly every minute. And this might come as a shock to some people, but I have not played the first Alan Wake, and I had thought about going back to it or getting to it before the release. But just with everything all stacked up, all the games, I unfortunately didn't get to it. So I watched a video, and I do have knowledge of the American Nightmare DLC, which I did play. But Remedy does a really good job in not making you feel entirely lost if you haven't played the first game. So some questions may still arise, but the intrigue and mystery is part of the charm that this game carries. And oh boy, this has a lot of that weird, fucking confusing. Best way that I can be described as a Remedy ass Remedy game. All right, you know the drill. Let's do the technical block first before we dive into the game. So I went ahead and I played the game on PC with an RTX 4080 and an i7 13700K with the resolution set to 1440p and DLSS set to quality. All of the graphical settings turned up to the highest value. This game's a looker. It feels like I've been saying that a lot this year, but Resident Evil 4 Remake, Phantom Liberty, and Spider-Man 2, Alan Wake 2 graphically is something that needs to be talked about. When Control was first released in 2019, ray tracing was something that had only recently been implemented into games in a more meaningful way. And while ray tracing in Control was absolutely gorgeous, not that many people were able to take advantage of it, being as not a lot of hardware at the time were ray tracing capable. Now in 2023, ray tracing has almost become a norm for games of the modern age, and this game's rendition of ray tracing is the same as Cyberpunk's path tracing, which can simulate real light rays in a more realistic manner than ever before. Footage here should be good enough for you to see, even with the shitty YouTube compression, that it is a gorgeous ass video game, and Remedy really showed out here. Did I also mention that the performance is really fucking good? On average, I was in the ballpark of like 75 to 95 FPS with all these previously mentioned settings. I'm more than happy with that. I think it's great. Even, yes, I'm running DLSS, it has some upscaling, but overall, I thought it looked fantastic and it played great as well. Another note to highlight on the technical aspect is the facial animations for the characters. Early on, I noticed this sort of uncanny valley with some of the characters where the facial animations were like almost too good to the point where I could see wrinkles on their forehead. In particular, there's a side character named Rose, who is maybe not all there, but her facial animations are wild. There are plenty more down the line that you will see, but just know that Remedy really showed off their talent here in Alan Wake 2 across the technical and story front.
Oh, I know what this is. You're blocking out your traumatic memories. Happens on TV all the time.
No. You're mistaking me for someone else. If you say so.
I'm going to do my best to describe parts of the narrative for this game, but it's something that kept me asking questions and constantly saying to myself, what in the fuck? And I mean that in the best possible way. In this game, you will play as both Saga Anderson and as the titular character Alan Wake, each having their own story and gameplay elements. Once you reach a certain point in the main story, you will be able to switch between the two main characters, which was not something I was expecting at all, as I figured the story would be told in intervals, switching us back and forth when the narrative needed it to. At first, I was a little worried that this might get kind of messy with me jumping back and forth from each storyline, but there's enough intersections and crossing points between the two where you're reminded of something that happened a few hours ago as you were playing as the other character. Now, I am trying to be as vague as possible when talking about the main narrative plot points because there is a lot to unpack in this game no matter what order that you end up playing it in. And it isn't something like Resident Evil 2 where Claire and Leon are going about in which is essentially the same areas. Here in Alan Wake 2, you have entirely separate areas for each character with multiple different areas to go around and explore. You do start out as Saga, which might throw some people off, but you do get to Alan's part later on, and trust me, you're gonna love it. Saga is an FBI agent alongside Alex Casey, who shares the same name as one of Alan's characters in his books, and he's also face modeled by none other than Sam Lake himself, who is the director co-writer and one of the main faces of Remedy. They even went a step further as to use the voice of James McCaffrey, who also does the voice for Max Payne in the third game. While that might seem small and inconsequential, Sam Lake back in the day was the face model for Max Payne, as they figured it would be cheaper to use the face of a developer instead of having to pay someone to do so. And I just love how meta Remedy has gotten with this whole thing and the storyline between Alex and Saga, and the way that they incorporated it to actually feel cohesive and not forced. Saga is actually a really great vessel for the player as the story is told through her eyes, because she's not really privy to a lot of what's going on. Say, like for me, I haven't played the first game, so seeing the game through her eyes and a lot of these first experiences with Alan's story and the surrounding areas of Brightfall, it was cool because I was being introduced to it as if it was my first time, and I really appreciated that. Another thing that I thought was really cool about Saga, true to her job as being part of an FBI agent, we are tasked with investigating crime scenes around the surrounding areas and coming up with solutions to said crimes. While this could have been achieved through dialogue options, Alan Wake 2 takes it a little step further and has you take sort of snapshots of evidence for the crime area. These snapshots are more so mental snapshots that are filed away, and then Saga can access those mental snapshots in a place that's called the Mind Place. And the Mind Place is essentially this interactive menu narrative system that allows you to walk around an entire room but access all the things that you would normally access within a menu. First, I thought this might get a little annoying having to walk around each part of the room and it might slow it down, but it wasn't until I got to the evidence wall that I really was like, okay, this is some cool shit. Now, if you're familiar with any old school detective movie or the Pepe Sylvia meme, you'll see the wall is connected by these pieces of threads. And each piece of evidence can be connected by a thread, and then by combining those pieces of evidence, Saga actually can come to a deduction and find the next piece in the puzzle. It's immensely satisfying when you're placing a piece of evidence down and you see the piece of evidence get put along the board that is usually accompanied by a line by Saga. All this really allows you to follow along with the plot and what is going on, and allows you to go back and maybe review materials if you weren't clear on it the first time. Saga also has the ability to profile people when enough information has been revealed, allowing her to see into their thoughts, aiding in dialogue conversations and interrogations. A lot of Saga's gameplay will feel more akin to something that is of the recent Resident Evil remakes, and I think that is a great way for this to kind of dip your toes in. And the survival horror genre was definitely a big sense of inspiration for Remedy when making this game. Like most survival horror games, you can find ways to upgrade your weapons, and in Alan Wake 2, you find little pieces of comic fragments around the map as Saga, and these will act as upgrades for your weapon that you can then access within the Mind Place. And you do so by exploring a lot of the surrounding areas of Bright Falls, and a lot of the areas that you're going to explore do have this unsettling feeling where the townspeople and just everyone in it feel a little off and you can't quite put your finger on it. Each of the surrounding areas, whether that be the woodsy countryside or the lake that isn't a lake but it's an ocean, having an accompanying mood to them that is just enough to make you feel creeped out and unsettled. And that is a running theme as you're slowly putting together the pieces for the Cult of the Tree and how they fit into the overall narrative. Her story is one that is going to confuse you at times, but the more and more you play the game, you'll see how this world and that of the Dark Place are not just connected, but how they come together as the narrative progresses is something that was incredibly well crafted by the writers. Now you're probably wondering, where the hell is the writer himself? The game is called Alan Wake 2. So where is he?
He had guided me to 2 murder sites. I needed a new one to get back to Parliament Tower. A new draft of initiation.
Title character of Alan Wake 2 has spent the last 13 years in something called the Dark Place, a manifestation of dark reality where monsters try to escape through the use of arts, and in this case, Alan's writing. Something that I wasn't aware of until I started playing the game was the performance of Alan Wake was actually a combination of 2 actors playing the same role. And I do apologize if I butcher any of these pronunciations of their names, but you have Ilka Vili as the face model and playing Alan in any of the live action sequences. But then you have Matthew Poreda doing the voice work for Alan. It's done so seamlessly here that I didn't even know about it until a conversation about how an award would be given to that person, whether it would be one of them, both of them, or how that would be played. Because they both do a great job here with the live action performances as well as the voice performances as well.
It's time someone gave me a straight answer here. next time we meet, the circumstances will be very different. And you would do well to return the favor by playing your part. Or stay out of my way, Mr. Wig.
Whatever you say.
And one of the biggest differences with his storyline versus Saga was how the environment was used in his segments that made you think outside the box a little. And by a little, I mean a lot. Saga, like I mentioned, there's going to be a more traditional Resident Evil gameplay where you have to find the key to open the door. While that still exists here, it's a Remedy game. So there's going to be a little twist to it. You'll be finding yourself going down a staircase, only to appear on a balcony across the door. Am I going to try to make sense of it? No. Do I absolutely love it? Yes. Yes, I do. In Alan's story, we are still trying to write our way out of the dark place, as this has been our home for the last 13 years. This is also going to be the area where you see a lot of the live action elements of the story. At times, the game will want you to interact with the TV that has a static picture on it, and by interacting, the camera will slowly start to pull in, taking you into a live action sequence with all the actors and everything. Remedy did something like this with TV episodes that played at the end of chapters in Quantum Break, but here they're done so seamlessly in bites where they never feel as if they're overstaying their welcome. I love the way that these sequences play out, as you're able to drive the plot forward, but it also uses it as a way to catch out the player and Alan into what the hell has been happening at the dark place. And once you leave the TV station, you're greeted to the dark, moody streets of New York City, which instantly strikes you as this really dark, unsettling skyline because you can't exactly see some of the tops of these buildings, almost if they're never ending. This is where you can then kind of go around and explore the dark place, which at first can seem a little tricky to maneuver, but Remedy went ahead and added one of the coolest mechanics I've ever seen implemented into a game. One of the tools that Alan has at his disposal here in the dark place is a lamp, or a clicker as he's called it in some instances. This is a tool that he's basically able to harness the light with that can change the reality and rewriting it within the dark place. I would just want to know how the hell did they get this to work so seamlessly. The ability to change the landscape around you at a moment's notice and use that to explore is so innovative and really blew me away. It also changed how I would approach a lot of scenarios in the game, because I would kind of think, okay, can I do something in this reality or that reality? And it opened up a lot of different variations to how I would go about and explore. Exploration is going to be a key in the dark place. And the way that Alan does it is by using the lamp clicker as well as his abilities as a writer. Previously mentioned at the top of the block was how Alan was trying to write his way out of the dark place with a story that can blend and meld different genres together. When you arrive at certain locations, you will be treated with the title card that says New Scene. What this allows you to do is look around for the location for possible plot points that might change the story. And to change the story, all you have to do is to walk up to that section, select a plot point, and the world around you will react and change to the plot. Once again, how the fuck did they do this shit? While there is a little loading sequence, it isn't something that's going to take up too much time, but hearing that satisfying sound of the typewriter clacking away and then the scene changing is pretty damn special. Now, I'm going to show off a little sequence here in the game that is, I'm going to label this as a spoiler, because I wish you could see my fucking jaw. I believe it is best experienced on your own, but I did want to talk about it here in my review because I enjoyed it so much. So that's why I'm going to put the spoiler there. So if you've already played Alan Wake 2 or don't care about spoilers, you can go ahead and keep on watching for this next sequence, or you can skip ahead to the timestamp that is listed on the screen. So you'll get to a chapter that is titled We Sing as Alan, and as you're going through, it is revealed to actually be an interactive musical number with combat encounters, interactive storytelling moments where you're clearing out waves of enemies. And then you have the actual live action characters while you're slaying out these waves of enemies. And I'm not gonna lie, normally I hate musicals. I'm not a fan, but I had the biggest smile on my face while doing this sequence, and I loved it. And there's even a sequence where they do a full-blown Peacemaker dance number, and everyone looks like they're having a blast. I mean, Sam Lake, I'm calling him Warlandor, one of the characters in there. Everyone, the guy Ilka, they all look like they're having so much fun doing this, and that is a sentiment that I've seen a lot of people experiencing when they've played this segment, and if there was an award for best sequence in a video game, this would easily be a shoo-in to win that award for sure.
Dog.
I know that I've been very vague in talking about the story, but it's Alan Wake 2 is a game that I wonder how the hell it even got made in the first place. Rarely can a studio blend the live action elements, mix in survival horror elements, and then sprinkle in a little crime scene investigation and murder mystery and have it work as well as it did here. It might sound a little pretentious to say this, but this game is art. This game just oozes art no matter where you look at it. Whether that be the interactive menu system that we have access to with each character, or the stylized block text that denotes a chapter, scene, or scene change. There are in-universe commercials that deepen the lore about the area that you're in, whether that be the Coffee Brothers talking about the Oh Dear Coffee. There's also a coffee world that is everything coffee themed, coffee pot, coffee everything, or the repeated messages that Alan leaves behind for himself trying to piece together this broken memory. While from the outside it might seem like just another survival horror game, it's so much more than that. It takes the survival horror genre and adds a lot of that Remedy touch to it. I'd also like to point out this is one beefy ass game. I did take my time trying to explore as much as possible in the respective areas that I could with both Saga and Alan, and I did a fair amount of weapon upgrades and nursery rhymes, and I think my time was right around 20 hours when I rolled credits, which is really long for most survival horror games. The only real bummer to this whole thing is that this game, at the time of writing this review, is an Epic Games Store exclusive on PC, which will upset some people, and there is no physical copy of the game, which has upset more people. But Epic did bankroll the game and published it, and it turned out pretty fucking awesome to me. So if that's an indie indication of what might be to come forward, by all means, Epic, give them a blank check. And this game was something that a lot of people were looking forward to, but I don't think that many people were expecting it to get this type of reception. With plenty of people, myself included, are now considering this as one of their game of the years. While I'm leaning towards it at the moment, I still want to let that experience simmer in the pot for a little bit longer, and we'll share my thoughts in a larger game of the year video at the end of the year. In an already packed and stacked year for gaming, Remedy just decided to drop one of the most ambitious and beautiful games of the year, and did so with a staff of 125 people and a time span of 3 years. They are now hard at work on the New Game Plus mode for the game, as this will add a new ending as well as changing up elements of the story. And then on top of that, we are also going to see the release of 2 paid DLCs for the game, with Night Springs set to release in early 2024, which will see us playing and experiencing mysterious events inside multiple self-contained stories of fictional TV show called Night Springs. The final DLC, titled The Lake House, which you can all guess where we're going to go there, that is set to be released sometime in the end of 2024. And if the quality of the base game is any indication as to what those DLC packs will hold, I'll be there day one to show my support for Remedy, as I really fell in love with them on Control, and now this game has cemented them as one of my favorite video game developers. And if you did make it this far into the review, I wanted to say thank you for taking the time out of your day, and this has been my review for Alan Wake 2. Thank you for watching.